our technical glitches. Couldn't figure out something. So that's why I'm 5 minutes late for those of you who were waiting to start. So Pure Coaching Live, for those of you who don't know, it's a weekly live dedicated to the deeper aspects of coaching. You know, we talk about the difficult subjects and the work involved to truly help people transcend, to create the clients that we work with who become transcendent human beings. Like every session is an opportunity for them to become so much more, which means if you're working with them for months or even years, my God, the changes you get to be present to and part of are beyond anything you could possibly imagine when you start out on this work. So that's what we're doing here. You know, we are here to explore these sometimes big, sometimes small ideas to help you be better at coaching. Ben, welcome. So Ben, I was with Ben a few minutes ago and we were sharing the technical difficulties. So thank you for your help there. I appreciate it very much. So before actually today, right, exploring, like, have your clients feel safe enough that you can hurt them. You know, it can sound quite provocative and challenging, right? Which is kind of half the point, but it's very true. You know, when it comes to the work with our clients, there are some difficult truths, and it's unlikely anyone in their life is going to be honest with them in a way that is meaningful and useful. Most people will soften it, or you get the people who bludgeon it. We do it in a far deeper, far more beautiful way, and that's what we'll be exploring today. So how to make your clients feel safe enough that you can help them feel pain because of the topics you're discovering, because of the exploration that you go on together, which they will thank you for. Not at the time. Sometimes they will hate you for it in the moment, like really hate you. In fact, one client of mine a few weeks ago, when I had one of these, it was actually an impromptu mini session when we were meeting, and for a few days, I think she hated me and hated other people who were in the group as well, in my coaching group. So, you know, it's triggering stuff, but that's what we're here for, right? We need to be willing to go to those places to be of deep service. Now, today, it's, well, not today, actually, like on Halloween, just gone. It was the 6-year anniversary of my last day of employment. So the 1st of November, 2014 was when I truly embarked on this adventure, really, of like immersing myself in the world of coaching. It wasn't just for that. I also, the actual main reason I left the work was to actually be with my grandma, who was 99 at the time and needed more support. And I realized, you know, being at that job with people who didn't particularly care about people, at least not the people who run the company, you know, being away from her when she needed my support, it was just unacceptable to live that way any longer. And so that was the catalyst, really, of me leaving. It wasn't because I was ready. It wasn't because I'd made plenty of money and I was like, yay, I can make this coaching work. It was just, I have to do what's right. And that is to make sure that I can be with my grandma as much as she needs. And I you know, if I would have been at that place and something would have happened to her, because she fell over multiple times when I wasn't there, if it happened in a way that was catastrophic and I was there because I hadn't like taken the risk, it would have been unacceptable. Thankfully, I did that. And unfortunately, well, fortunately and unfortunately, she had, I didn't know this at the time, but she only had 9 months left to live. Didn't know that at the time. So if I hadn't have made the leap when I did, I would have missed out on so much with her. And it was a beautiful, meaningful, the most meaningful thing, probably, maybe even the most important thing I'd ever done up to that point, definitely. To be with her, be present, and love her and support her and have fun with her and all the things that were needed. But I could not have done that whilst working 40, 50 hours a week, you know. So somewhere else anyway. And so what I did was I made the leap, and I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I had a coach to support me and other coaches I was friends with. So I had people who were in this world, and I set to work is what I did. So very cool though, 6 years later, right? So over those 6 years, you know, I've coached over 1,000 human beings now. I've done hundreds of like interactive talks, workshops. I've run, how many is it? Oh yeah, about 10 retreats with like co-facilitated with other people, like 10 of them, 6 in this country, four in Spain, and also emerged through working with people, actually, because coaches started to ask me like how I'd done what I'd done in the short time I'd done it, and started by helping them, and then starting to sort of help them to coach, which kind of just happened naturally, actually, through the work. I started to see to see what things that were missing, and I was like, why aren't you noticing this? Because they'd be coaching each other on video, sometimes in person, but mostly on video, because I've been working remotely for a long time, and just saying, why did you miss that? What are you not, what weren't you doing? And so then figuring out, well, what was I doing that made it so obvious to me as to that's the place to go? And over the past few years, been just extracting that, giving it to coaches, getting them to test it out. And that's where the birth and the evolution, really, of the 7 elements of pure coaching came from. I guess it's been in the brew for most of my life in some way, even back when I used to have severe anxiety and couldn't even speak to people. So what I did was I got very good at asking questions and listening, right? Because I didn't want to have to talk about myself at all. So what I didn't know back then was a thing that was done of insecurity, actually was training me to one day be a coach. But anyway, 6 years later, done so many things within the world of coaching, and this here, there's so much within coaching you cannot possibly know when you start. You cannot know how it's going to affect you. If you do this right, being a coach makes every part of your life better, because the attention you give to your clients and to others, really trying to understand how a human works, and how do people change? How does it actually work? What's going on? What are the mechanisms? And then, of course, needing to be the example of most of these things, at least working to become the example, even if you're not it at the time, or at least not in every area, right? It's a continuing evolution. But wow, what I had no idea, that doing this work would have life become so much more for me and for everyone I come into contact with. It's just beautiful. It's what it is. Arti, watching as you lunch, wonderful. That was my hope, actually, for doing it this time, that catch you, those of you who have lunch breaks. So with that, like today, actually, before I go there, I've got a lovely comment from Arti. What is this? Can completely relate. I got very good at listening and became known as the great listener at school because I was too scared to share my own thoughts and opinions. Right. Yeah, that was me too. Right. It's like would never take the risk. So it meant became silent, and people, especially one-on-one, in a group, it didn't work so well, because in a group I would just be the guy not speaking. Essentially why I was drawn to do drugs in my teens, actually, was to be able to connect. I suppose I was just trying to connect, is the honest truth. But in a group, it doesn't work so well. But one-on-one, yeah, people love that. Because it's like being truly listened to, right? Truly seen and heard. It's one of our greatest needs, that we've had since we were children, screaming, and parents can't understand us. And so, that need to be heard, that need to be noticed, and all of that, we still have that in some way. So even if it's born out of that place, and there are a lot of coaches, that would have begun, and therapists too, actually, that would have begun in that place of just, I'm doing this because I'm so terrified. And you do it long enough, of course, and you get really, really good at it, paying attention, So yeah, wonderful. Makes sense as to why we gravitated together in recent years, right? And to do some great work. And you always assumed I always assumed I was wrong. Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I would never say, because of course that would have been true sometimes, wouldn't it? Sometimes we would have been wrong, and at some point would have spoken up, said something first that would have been laughed at or ridiculed or just criticized, whatever it was. Might probably happened a few times, and then we're like, okay, it's dangerous. I don't like that feeling. I'm just not going to do that. I'll wait until someone else has said things, and then I will. In fact, I was still doing some of that, well, I suppose almost 7 years ago now, up to about January, February 2014, I was still doing a lot of that. And it was only when I took on one of my coaches then, and he asked the question of like, what impact do you have on people? When you ask them, like when you've been in their presence and then you've left them, what impact do you have? And it was, obviously in wanting to be a coach, I was looking for confirmation that it's the right thing. Obviously being a great listener and all of these things, right? It's like finding out, like the truth of what people experience of me is. And the honest truth was not a lot. Even the people that were friends and wanted to support me, it was pretty, like pleasant to be around. It was like that kind of level of impact, which is essentially is like, what's the point of being there? A lot of the time, pleasant to be around. Well, okay, so's that wall over there. It's nice to have that wall there. It's pleasant to not have the cold air coming in at the moment. That was the best. The worst was terrible. So yeah, so for me it's been that. That's been a big part of the work, right? To step so far outside of ourselves, to be willing to take these risks. Again, another thing which I didn't realize, but of course if you're trying to be a coach, which involves growing a business, which involves actually speaking out and having people notice and interact, you've got work to do, haven't you? You've got to go beyond your own fears and your own limitations to be able to be noticed, even, or to even be able to understand what it is and articulate it. There's so much inner work required for this. It's just phenomenal, is what it is. So let's get to today's topic, right? And that is, as you will know very well, Arti, and you, Ben, too, right? Have your clients feel safe enough that you can hurt them. And of course, I'm not talking in terms of like being like horrible to them for no good reason. Well, not even being horrible to them. I'm not saying about being horrible to them, right? It's about making them feel safe enough. Like extreme safety is what I'm calling it these days, so that you can be very direct and you can direct their attention to the things in life that they're failing at. Sometimes it's just asking questions and exploring. Sometimes it's just noticing when they are speaking and holding them in a moment when they wanted to move on. That moment in a session where a client's speaking about something and then they start to, like, you can feel them like tears coming to their eyes and getting choked up, and then they quickly move on and go somewhere else. So they're going to go deep, but then they come back up and try and get away from the pain of that. Well, our job is to be able to lovingly hold them in that space, or if they've moved past it, to bring them back to it, because there's something transcendent there, right? There's something very important to do that. But they won't be willing to go there unless we've created that space of extreme safety with them. So they don't feel that we are poking or judging or criticizing them. They need to feel completely safe and secure, so that when we do that, they don't even need to think about it, right? They just experience it as being for their own good, because they know that we're here to support them and serve them. And you cannot fake it. You can't rush that process, that way of connecting, that safe space creating. Sometimes in initial coaching, that could be the thing that you spend most time doing, depending on where someone is in their life and how ready they are to be challenged. So Avdi says, so you mean you're not just being horrible to me because you enjoy it? I'll be honest with you, I do enjoy it. But not obviously in the way that it's being horrible. I just enjoy it because I know how meaningful it is. And in fact, sometimes I hate it, is the honest truth. Sometimes it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, do I have to? It's like, oh, because I know it's not a pleasant thing to explore. And I'm reacting to it in some way because I know that how challenging it is for me to even look at those things. So sometimes I can just enjoy it because I know immediately the benefit of it. And sometimes it is like, shit. And part of me wants to avoid it. A part of me wants to run away from it myself, actually. But of course, I can't do that because I have a duty of care to you, and so it's vital that we do whatever is required, really, to have you connect to the truth of your life in a way that you can make empowered choices. I mean, it's quite simple what we're doing, but my God, is there a bunch of complexities in the way, from life experiences, conditioning, so much that is likely to have your clients fight the truths, right? Avoid the truths, don't want to look at the truths. There's so much there. So like when we look at what life is, I wrote it in the comments, which we know in the description, which I wonder if people will be interested in clicking on this, apart from those who are already connected to me. I honestly don't know, because I wrote something like this, and it was, everyone is going to get sick and die. Every single person you ever have loved or will love is going to get sick and die. You are going to get sick and die at some point in your life, maybe multiple times. It depends on what life you had. My mum, actually, we were talking about it, and she's had some kind of illness in her since she was very young, like going to school, like, as a young girl, left school at 15. So before that, she was having like problems then, she was getting ill way back then. So it's just a natural part of life that some of us we have different experiences of, but none of us are going to escape that. And also life is dangerous. As much as we'd like to live in a fairy tale world where you can just walk naked down the streets at any point in any way and be safe, right? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? It really would be wonderful to be able to do that. But we don't live in that world, and we never will. We are primal beings, and not everyone's doing the work of trying to understand themselves and try and go beyond their own patterns and triggers. There are plenty of people stuck inside of those the ways of reacting, and they become dangerous because of it. Now, some of those are not necessarily bad people, but they do bad things. Some of them have something wrong inside, and they do terrible things. People might call them evil. I don't necessarily think they are. They just have something wrong inside, I think, for those talking on the extreme aspect, like psychopathic type edge, right? There's just something wrong inside. And not all psychopaths, actually. There are psychopaths, as in people who have psychopathic structures in their brains, who don't do bad things, actually, that do very good things. They just have a very different relationship to life. So even then, it's not that simple. But the point that I was trying to make there is that we live in a world where people get sick and die, everyone that we know, and us included. Terrible things are going to happen, to either people we don't know or those that we do. It's just the world is a dangerous place. And so we can't avoid those things. And in fact, by pretending they don't exist, you are likely to attract them because you walk blind into bad situations. An example of this is people like walking around with headphones on, with music turned up, hoodies on, looking at the ground, right? Like, can you make yourself any more likely to get attacked, than by doing that? It's insane, really. But people do that because people are scared. So rather than be willing to experience their fear and to heighten their awareness so they make themselves safe, they avoid it, literally, by putting music in so they can't hear if there are any footsteps or anything around. They put hoodies on, which I don't like wearing anything like a hoodie out, like when I'm moving around, because it actually deadens the sound, actually, to some degree. The sound doesn't come in as well, and what you can see, your peripheral vision is compromised. So the dangers of not bringing our clients into alignment with the realities of the world are that they go and do something that could be catastrophic for them, which is pretty unacceptable. I would say, I'd say it's our duty to bring to our clients' awareness the truths of their life. Now, everyone's going to have slightly different truths, but there are some basics, right? Impersonal truths, as my friend Rich was calling it on a live we did recently, which means it's true for everyone in the world. There are some impersonal truths, which means if you're human, these are just basic parts of life that you just have to accept. Now, the beauty of accepting these things and holding your clients to these truths are they can own their life in a way that isn't possible by trying to avoid it or pretend it doesn't exist. And then they can create transcendent lives far beyond those things. You know, what the gift of having the awareness of death and pain and all those things, but not being a victim of it, means that you become more alive and more connected to the joys of life and the meaning of life. And you can be, it's much easier to be more committed to doing the things that matter to you. You know, a lot of the time when our clients are failing in their lives to do the things they say they want, it's because they're not really connected and they're not alive enough. In that there's part of them that are depressing their emotions, suppressing part of their being in some way. And so we need to do something about that. You know, and there are many different ways to do that. But here we're exploring, you know, making our clients feel really safe. Like, you're so safe. Like, I may say, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to say things you may hate sometimes, but I'm only doing it for your good, so you can make your life better, because that's why we're here. The only reason we're speaking is because you want your life to be better, right? You want to become more. And that's everything we're going to talk about, every single conversation we ever have, almost every, because sometimes we might hang out together at a different time, but when it comes to the coaching conversations, every single one is going to be about how your life can be better. Everyone. And that's going to involve you being very honest, you know. So just creating that space of safety and trust, which means that we do get to say things that other people would shy away from, that we do get to have our clients connect to the painful truths of life and the joys that are evident just by the nature of being alive. That's what we get to do. And if we can help our clients become more alive, well, then the actual coaching becomes very, very simple after that, you know. But we've got to be willing to go there, and we can't go there unless we've created this space of extreme safety. Do you have any questions, actually, you know, for this about the nature of life itself in this way, about directing people's attention to the pain, because some people don't like doing that. In fact, I watched a TV show the other day where this woman was on it, and she was with a partner, or a new partner, and she's like, and he wanted to give her this bag, like a survival bag, right? Which he sees as just a basic part of life, so that wherever he is able to give first aid to people. He has a basic kit in case you get cut. So that's, you know, his safety bag that he walks around with. He sees as, you know, never need it, but if he needs it, he's there and he can be of service, right? That's his bag. He gave this to his new wife, and she freaked out. And the reason she freaked out, as she said it, was because of her spiritual belief. She believes that by thinking about what could happen, like getting hurt, like by even thinking of that, it's going to make it happen. And it's like, that is so dangerous to walk around blind like that. But she was so upset, and it meant so much to her. And it's like, oh my God. And she's talking to her kids as well. I'm like, you're letting your children grow up deluded and avoiding like the things that might happen. That you're going to get hurt at some point in your life. That's just, get over it. It's just part of life. Don't be stupid. You know, you look at a child learning to walk. How many times does it fall over? You know, just living is dangerous. You know, people are driving. If you're cycling on your bike, there's so many possibilities, right, of things that could happen. If you're not even willing to look at it, you are likely to end up in some serious trouble, is what you're likely to have. And that's what often stops coaches from going there, is this misunderstood reality of misunderstood connection to how you create reality. So we don't create reality by thinking of something. We create reality by embodying something. It's very different. I'm not saying, we don't say to our clients, embody the pain and illness. No. What we are saying is connect to the truth of it, and then embody being a person who is ready to handle that, whilst also doing the extraordinary and doing extraordinary things that have you just fall in love with your life every day. You know, that's what we're going for. So often my clients apologize when they start crying for the first few times when we begin coaching together. And then they start to realize it's important and not judged by me in any way. So what I'd like to know, Arti, is why you keep making your clients cry? do you need help? Is this a sadist? I wrote in my advert for this. That's your sadist coming out. Obviously teasing. The apologizing for crying. My God, yeah. Number of times that happens. Even some friends of mine, actually. I've got one friend who's awesome, very evolved and human being, and yet sometimes, like, she actually stopped apologizing, but she feels it sometimes. She feels like she wants to, so that's in there. Because of course, growing up as kids, people are told what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. Remember, that is what are you allowed to feel and express and what aren't you. And of course, as adults, people haven't most of the time bothered to thought they could even change those things. They're just part of them, right? So like, they apologize for just feeling what they're feeling and for being seen to feel what they're feeling, essentially, right? We've got to change that. It's just not good enough, for them, to feel that there's something wrong with just what you're actually expressing in the moment is natural. And it's not causing pain to anyone, is it? It's just, so this person's in pain in this moment and is releasing through tears. It's obviously needed in this moment. So why should anyone ever apologize? Ben, I'm glad you haven't run away from it in the same ways that I have wanted to at the time. That is where the biggest changes for me have become obvious. Yeah, obviously we've had some of those moments, haven't we? Some of those moments of like, I really wish I didn't have to bring your attention to these places. I wish life was easier for you, especially obviously being family. I'd like, in some ways I would love life to be easier, especially certain parts of it. But on the other part, it's like, well, I also want you to be an incredibly evolved, like, human being who gets to hold these kind of spaces for people, right? And gets to live the extraordinary life that is open for you. And so there's the different parts of me going on as your coach, right? It's like, I really want you to not have to have this, but that's denying the reality of the truth, right? So yes, I wish things would have been different in certain areas, but they aren't. So how can you become a transcendent human being, and how can I support you in doing that? And so so that's why I will never shy away from those things. I won't like it, and I might hold back from it, but I will never hold back for very long. It will just, maybe it takes some time to consider how to bring it to your awareness, and that goes for any client. It's not always, we have to choose how we do these things. There's an art to it. We can overload people with it if we do it badly, but the care needs to be there, definitely. I say it's because you taught me to. When it came to the making clients cry, yes. This is very true. It's just one of those things, isn't it? When a lot of the time when we are coaching someone, they might have had a lifetime of experiencing certain things and holding back in certain ways. And when we, create that space of extreme safety, probably something they may have never experienced, or at least they haven't experienced it since they were a baby, then it's profound, really. And there is often an outpouring. It's very normal, actually. When people have been holding back for so long, and now finally they've got this space of safety, it's amazing, what can come from that. And, the release of tears is a very normal one. So it's a beautiful work there, Arti, that you're doing that. And of course, our clients won't need to keep crying about the same things if we do our job well. We let them cry, we hold the space for them so they can cry fully and deeply, and then they express whatever they need to express vocally, if there is anything. And then their life becomes different as a result. Their relationship to whatever they were crying about will change if we've done it well, if we've done it deeply enough, if they have experienced it deeply enough. And then, of course, they won't be crying about that again. So that's often just something to watch out for when it comes to our clients, actually. If they're crying about the same things, it means there's deeper work to be done about that same thing, because one deep cry about this thing, it's not always true. There are extent. It depends. Like grief is different to that, because that's a much more complex process. But when it comes to things that have happened, or things they're doing, or specific situations, the repeated crying should not be there. It's a sign that we've got deeper work to do on that area. So it's vital. Sanjay, hey man, welcome. So, okay, I want to try something now. I wanted to do this in a different way. So actually, before I do this, so I've got a question for you. Actually, so when it comes to creating a space of extreme safety for someone, where there's not one part of them that has them feel judged in any way, so we can say these terrible things, what question do you have about creating or holding that space? What question do you have? And for you on the replay there, yes, you. I see you, and you can see me. What question do you have? You're here, participate, ask your question. I'll be notified and I'll reply, or I will use it to build on for another live. But yeah, what question do you have about this? Because the truth is, most coaches aren't able to do this very well. Most human beings aren't able to do this. It's why I've realized just the importance of this, and I'm seeking opportunities actually to be able to support more people in being able to have this be a natural part of what people do for each other. I ran a meetup group for 2.5 years with a friend of mine, where we did about 400 events, and it was called Deep Connections London. And during that, we were creating this safe space within which everyone there could feel supported. And we were pairing people up and getting them to meet and connect and to share deeply. And part of that, I got them to, because I realized they weren't really sharing deeply. They were just talking at each other. So I got them to have one-way conversations, so that one person's job was to speak and to share openly as they could. The other person's job was to listen in silence, as if no one else existed and nothing else existed, as if this is the most important thing that's ever been heard. Not trying to think about what to say, none of that, just presence and listening. If we did so, doing that was beautiful. And that ended beginning of 2018, actually, or somewhere in the beginning of 2018. And I realized that I want to bring something like that back in. Now, obviously, we're limited in terms of in-person meetups, but I realized my future for pure coaching will involve teaching people to do that as well, to connect with each other, to hold those kind of spaces. I see this as a fundamental life skill that everyone should have. One place I'd like to take this is teachers in schools, because they are often terrible at this. It's very overly critical and judgmental, and saying things, making kids laughing at a child in class, for instance, which seems harmless. But because there's not a space of safety there, and because other children might use it for bullying, some of the things teachers do without even realizing it are just horrendous. So I'd love to go there and to be into multiple schools and be able to teach them these things. So that's definitely something I'm seeking to roll out with the pure coaching, actually. Sanjay, I'm a fitness coach. I verbalize things like, this is a non-judgmental space and I'm here to help. The more honest and open you are, the more I'll be able to help. I've realized that sometimes just verbalizing these things does it. It will help, of course. It's important to verbalize it. As to whether you're just verbalizing it does it, that it won't. And you might create some safety, but it won't. It's not enough, really, because unless you know this person well and you've got a relationship, then why would their nervous system trust you? Their brain might. It makes sense. But why would their nervous system trust you? And what I mean by that is that our unconscious responses, like a fear trigger, they go far beyond, like the fear of rejection, for instance, the fear of judgment, those kind of things. Most of them happen outside of consciousness, right? They are automatic conditioned responses that we've developed over years. So the verbalizing might help, it might be part of it, but the way you verbalize it and what you do afterwards as well is going to be significant. It's like every touch point, like every moment of connection with someone is teaching them about us and informing their level of trust. Every single one, whether it be a comment on a Facebook page, or a conversation by WhatsApp, whether it be a coaching session, every single one is like it is with any connection with anyone. Actually, they are informing and teaching their subconscious as well as their conscious about the relationship and the trust within it. So for you could take this a lot further, Sanjay, like way further. And it's really not about necessarily the words either. It's more about the experience. So that's my question to you, Sanjay. How do you, after you've verbalized it, how are you creating that experience in a way that backs up what you verbalized? Like, how specifically are you doing that? Now, wonderful. So I'd like to do something. I'll try something new here. That's interesting. Hang on. There we go. Maybe here. Hello. Ben, hello. Can you hear me okay?
I can. You're just delayed on the video.
Wonderful.
Cool. I can hear you.
Well, you're going to need to mute the obviously your computer for now.
Yeah, I've done so.
Very cool. Okay, I was hoping to do this slightly differently, but it wasn't working technically, which is why I was late today. So actually, can you, Sanjay, could you let me know actually, and Arti or whoever's here, can you hear Ben? So Ben, say something. Sing into the mic.
Hello. Hello from the other side. Is that enough?
Those dulcet tones, man. I think there's a career waiting for you. So can you hear Ben okay? Can you hear? Because I can turn him up actually. I just don't want it to be too loud for the mic. It's hard to know how sharp it is. So let me know. Can you hear Ben? What I want to do is I want to bring someone on to actually interact. Which I want to add a little spice to the live. We did it by accident on a live with my friend Rich a couple of weeks ago, and I really liked it. So I wanted to bring that in here. Arti can hear. Wonderful. Okay, so Ben, you have your question. You have all your statement. So let's go. Thank you, Sanjay. So the loving space is obviously very important here. I know that you signal a place being created in the physical world with your arms. Is this of particular importance? I see. Yeah, because I do it in the live. I do it in the video, of course. So is it of particular importance? No. I do it deliberately, well, half deliberately and half naturally when I'm doing a video in this way, because I express virtually. So just as in the pure coaching, you train in virtual reality listening, by me using my physiology, I am actually doing virtual reality storytelling, which makes it easier for the person listening to take that in. So is it essential? No. Does it help someone to experience it and to get what you mean? Yes, it does. If you can do it in a way that is natural, then do so. And you may need to practice it, right? So it becomes natural too. Like, coaches don't rehearse enough. You should rehearse the things that you say in your sessions many times. Record yourself on video. Pay attention to what you're actually doing so you can upgrade it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, of course I record things like my ideas and things like that, but I don't really record that kind of coaching space as much as I could. I think that's really cool. And also, I mean, all of the coaching that I've done has been through Zoom, right? I mean, there's been person-to-person things that I've utilized from understanding coaching, but all my real coaching work has been done through Zoom. And I think that the sort of signal of this space seems to have an importance, to sort of bring them in a bit more. That's where my kind of question came from, really.
Yeah, great. So you've noticed a reaction, have you, by you doing this?
I've noticed more of a reaction from myself in you doing it, and I haven't practiced it enough.
That's interesting. What have you noticed? What reaction do you have when I do that?
I'm like, it's just it's kind of like, oh, I know that's part of the coaching element. So I'm like, oh, okay, it's a reminder that this is a really safe space and that you're very comfortable for me to continue with the things that I'm saying, almost like an encouragement, like, this is cool, keep going, not like, don't hold back here. There's certain things, of course, like certain times in coaching where I'm like, oh, this is, because I understand it from the coaching perspective or the things that you've taught me. I'm like, okay, this is what you're encouraging me to do at this point. Like, using mirror language, you say that certain word. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad that you picked up that that's important. Or using this physical space that you're creating. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm sort of in a space of maybe this is uncomfortable, but it's cool to continue here. That's what I'm noticing.
Wonderful. So now I've got a question for you. Why might that work better than me just saying it?
You're not interrupting me, and also there's this. I think not interrupting is important because it's just easy to make me go deeper into something without really too much sort of touching on my ideas or what I'm experiencing there.
So let me adjust my question because I don't think I was clear. So why might me doing a physical movement to represent this safe space be better and work in a deeper way than me just saying it?
Oh, of course, because it's instead of you're showing rather than telling. As such, you're actually bringing me into that space rather than saying, at some point, it's going to be okay for you to talk and to speak about these things. I mean, not to be aware as when it is. I think it's more of a displaying it, like, rather than just lining it up to be used.
So my doorbell's just gone. Hang on one sec. Let me just try something. Okay. I had to mute there because Bessie is right next to me, and if she was to bark, I've had her bark when I've been on calls with people, and it is jarring because the mic picks it up very strongly. So where was I? I've forgotten where we were. What were we saying?
I was just saying how you using something that's physical, like a physical motion, rather than you saying, is bringing me into a space of showing and not telling, and actually, instead of lining up the fact that it's going to be a safe space and this is your intentions in creating it, it's just more there. It's just more obvious that you're trying to put that into action.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well, like it comes with like congruence too. So congruence is when things are aligned, essentially, when what you say aligns with what you're doing. What you think, what you say, and what you do are kind of aligned. And so by embodying it physically, it's a similar to people who smile. When someone does a fake smile, it's not their entire face, right? Their entire being. When someone really smiles, it's actually not just the entire face, it's the entire body, right? Smiles in some way. And it's that kind of congruence which is going to penetrate through someone's like protective shield of their nervous system and have them more likely to relax and believe it, to be true. Again, it's not something you can fake. I recommend you practice it just because it's good to know, because sometimes you get self-conscious when you're actually doing it, right? Because this is new and you're not used to doing it. So you may not actually do it in the way that is best for the person in front of you. So practice it, yes. In the moment, it needs to be natural and real for it to work. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me, yeah, completely. Yeah, just aligning, aligning everything together is a lot more believable than just the one thing, the thought or the idea of it.
Yeah, and as much as possible, it's that, which is why being more expressive makes you more trustworthy. If it's real. If it's not real, and you'll see this if you watch politicians on TV, if something seems off, if you ever noticed this, not just politicians actually, but some people on TV, because they've been coached on how to speak publicly or on video. Actually, a lot of coaches too do this. I've even experimented with it myself, and I just didn't like it because of this problem. When you know that certain expressions can have certain meanings for people, or you know that you want to be more expressive so that people can see more, what it can have you do is to think about it and do these movements that are not natural and aligned with what you're saying. So if something just doesn't feel right, and the person does not feel trustworthy in that moment, and people don't necessarily know what they're noticing, but it is their body is not speaking in the same way that their words are, and that incongruence, it can be felt and can have you not trust that person, even if what they're saying feels like it's very good. So it's definitely something to watch out for. No false body movements, for the sake of it.
I mean, yeah, so in these kind of spaces, of course, it's signaling this expression when we feel it as well, when we feel that we want people to open up and to feel comfortable in this space. It's like it starts from within us.
Yes, exactly. Damn right it does. Always starts from within us, which is why we should prepare for our sessions before we go, before we jump on, right? Get ourselves into this loving, caring, non-judgmental space, the miracle space, as I call it, right? The space of extreme safety within which miracles can occur, right? When people feel safe enough that they can connect to something deep within themselves that hasn't become someone more, and it can happen rapidly. As you've experienced yourself, right? You've been on the receiving end of this, haven't you?
Yes, definitely.
Just how rapidly you've changed in recent weeks is just phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Miracle space is a good term for it.
Right, let me see. Sanjay's commented again. Let's see what he said. I would also share something personal about me, and I also try to be as transparent about my intentions with the coaching or consultation, along with verbalizing those things. Right. Okay. That makes sense. So share something personal about you. Yeah, that is definitely, I call that building a bridge, is what I call that. And that goes for any connection, really. You actually, just going to mute you for a sec because there's some background sound. So when you build a bridge by going first, right? You show them that it's safe by actually expressing something deep and meaningful, and maybe something that they wouldn't expect or that someone else wouldn't do. That's very true. In fact, it's a great thing for us to do in our posts, public posts and videos, which can have someone trust us long before we ever meet them. It's a very useful thing to do, as well as, it's a freeing thing for us too, in that way. So yeah, so sharing something personal. In fact, Ben, what have you discovered, when it comes to that, like within your coaching work so far? Bearing in mind, Ben's been coaching for like 4 months now, 4.5 months, from scratch. So it's very new. But what's your experience of doing that, of sharing something personal and having the person that you're sharing it with feel safer and open up? What have you noticed so far? Are you there, Ben? Ben, are you there?
Yes, I am. Sorry. You were trying to mute me. I muted myself. Oh. Anyways, I did get some of that. So the things that have come up when I'm sharing, I think it's allowed people to also speak about mistakes that they've made. I mean, I've spoken about things like, I'm speaking about this because I've noticed the importance of it. I haven't been perfect at doing something, and I've realized that, maybe this is a better idea, or exposing some of my weaknesses as well for people to open up about theirs. I do think that it helps people relate to me, because I'm not giving off this impression that, I'm perfect and that I know everything now. Is allowing the space to be like co-created in that kind of way, not just me giving out loads of things that that people are unsure of how to really take in.
Are you able to remember a specific example of when you shared something and then immediately afterwards the person you were coaching opened up in a way that they weren't before?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I can remember particular. I can remember particular people, but I can't really give you a very clear answer on that, to be honest.
And that's okay. Just going forwards, I'd recommend that you pay closer attention. It's why. Have you been reviewing your sessions afterwards? Doing the 3-to-1.
Yes, I have recently reintroduced it in, and I think that would be important, like putting in an example, like, this helped someone open up, something like that would be good.
You want to pay attention to that
further.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just something, because so many things to think about, isn't there, when it comes to coaching? So many things to track and to get better at. So just direct your attention there, because it's very important that you understand it's not about what you share necessarily, but it is about the nature of how you share it and what happens afterwards, right? How the person responds. So it's very important. You should know that and track that. It's very important, actually. It's something that coaches don't seem to do unless I tell them to do it. It's quite funny. It's like you should be tracking what is working within your session specifically. You shouldn't be, in general terms, just because something's supposed to work doesn't mean it will. And then even if it does work, the reason it works may not be what you think it is. So it's very important to track your work, track the sessions you're doing, and to be able to review them to understand much, much better what's truly effective for you and your clients. It's damn important to do so. One of the things that makes it very easy, actually, is the fact that most of us are doing Zoom coaching now. And so a lot of the time you can record sessions, and so you can actually watch them back. What a gift it is. And also, some clients like to receive the sessions too. And it depends on how you coach, if you like to do that. But some clients, you can send them the session so they can review it themselves, So it can be great for them, superb for you, as you get to really understand what you did that worked and what you did that didn't. I strongly recommend you do that.
I personally don't. I haven't recorded many sessions, but I have. That is definitely something I should do.
See, great example, right? Ben, when do you think I first mentioned recording sessions?
When do you think you first mentioned?
Yeah. When do you reckon? Like, since you started coaching, when do you think I would have mentioned that? Like, make sure you record your sessions and review them. When do you reckon?
Oh, you suggested it straight away.
That's right. So, why haven't you been doing it?
I'm not sure. I remember that I had an experience with someone that didn't like that I recorded it, and I think that put me off.
Right. So then what's the solution there? Well, the solution you came up with was, I just won't ever do it again. Right. But what's the better solution?
In this instance, just point to the fact that I'm recording the session.
There you go.
That would be quite a simple solution.
Exactly. I just let you know I'm recording the session. So I look back at them. No one else sees them. I look back at them personally so I can upgrade things. And if you would like, I can send it to you, because some of my clients really love to receive their sessions so they can understand themselves better. Just say that at the beginning, something like that, and then they can choose. If they say, actually, I prefer you didn't, it's no problem, right? Turn it off. No big deal either way.
Yeah.
great example of, isn't it interesting that is what, so what is that like within you actually that had you move away from it rather than just create a better solution?
What is it within me?
Yeah. Why did you do that? I mean, I don't mean why, you've already answered why you did that, but what was it that, like, why didn't you consider more deeply that, how that the importance of it and how you could bring that into your sessions in a way that maybe feels better for you and for your clients? Like, why did you just stop doing it?
I think I stopped doing it because of the sort of the response and the fear it's the same response again, and maybe like venturing into that, or just breaking through something that's kind of embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing. Like, what if they say no again? What if they don't like that? It's like, oh yeah, maybe I should revisit that feeling.
Right. So because again, like when it comes to coaching, right, that what you're doing there, what you did there, you're going to be doing in a bunch of places, where something doesn't feel right, feels uncomfortable, feels embarrassing. And instead of going deeper into it and willing to have people say no, you avoid it completely. So that's going to be showing up. So make a note of that. Actually, let's look. That's a pattern there that we need to pick up on. Yeah. And you personally, of course, pay attention to where that's coming up for you. Where are you avoiding something rather than risking embarrassment? Because as coaches, particularly, we should be risking embarrassment. Anyway, I think I'm going to bring this to a close now because I'm really close to the hour. But thanks, Ben. Thank you for joining and contributing.
No worries at all.
Great for the live, great for you as well, and great for me because I get to know you better, and it's great to have you be of service to the people watching too, man. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you very much.
All right, speak to you soon. Very cool. I wanted to do it slightly differently technically. I'll look back and see how the sound was there, but I really like it, actually, having someone on each week and actually engaging, and getting into some things. And obviously sharing something of value, right? It advances the conversation. So, I'll just pick up on what else you said there, Sanjay, before I wrap this up. So I try to be transparent about my intentions with the coaching or consultation. Yeah. So transparent, again, it's very simple. It's great, isn't it? But it's avoided a lot of the time, your intentions. So my question to you, Sanjay, is, are you clear about your intentions for like what this is, what the paid work could be? How far do you go with that? Do you make it so like obvious as to the fact that you would love to, like, I don't know if this is true, but let's assume it is, that you'd love to work with people over a long period of time, and that this is just to assess things and whatever language you use for that first session. And you got at the end of the session, you've got a range of options, and the person can say yes or no. Do you go that far as to say what your intentions are long term with someone? Because I imagine as a trainer, right, you want to work with people over longer periods of time because that's better for them, better for you, better for for your development and all these things. Do you do that? Because the more transparent you are in those kind of ways too, the more likely it is that someone isn't going to feel sold to, because there's often like an internal pressure that's there, especially if you're doing like a no-fee consultation or no-fee coaching session. There's like an internal pressure often of like, I don't know how much your fees are. I don't know what you're going to ask me. I don't know if I'm going to want to be coached by you. And that can get in the way, really, of them just relaxing into the moment to be able to be coached and to be able to connect to whatever they need to connect to. So, Sanjay, do you go that far with it? And if you don't, I strongly recommend you do. Like, what is your ideal with this person? If you're going to work, would you want to work with this person for a year or two? What is your ideal? And then, of course, letting them know they don't have to do that, and there are many other options of all different kinds. But just do you go all in with what you want from this? Because I strongly recommend you do. One of the things that I regularly say actually is that I like to work with people over very long periods of time. A year plus. However, whatever, this is a no-fee tryout, but we also will have an initial trial period, which might be 6 weeks, it might be 3 months, where we actually dig in and we do some deep work together. And at the end of that time, depending on how well it went, then we'll see if we want to make a bigger commitment to each other. So I often say better than that when I'm with someone. I just threw it out there for you because it was very relevant in that way. But I find that helps a lot, actually, because I do like that. I don't really like when I'm coaching people, and it's the longer the better, really, in terms of what can happen. And the bigger the container, of course, the commitment within that container means so much more is possible, and from the person too, so much more is required of them. And so the bigger the container, the bigger the time and the depth you can go, it can make every session so much more effective. So much more can happen every time you meet because they know that they've committed so deeply. So if that's the way you work, I strongly recommend you let them know. And good, Sanjay. Yes, I do. I tell them in advance that I'm going to sell them something at the end of this free consultation. However, I would also try and give some value for free during the consultation too, irrespective of whether you decide to work with me or not. Yeah, it's the free fudge, as I would call it, right? It's like, how do they know that your fudge is delicious? Well, because they don't really want to buy fudge necessarily, right? They may have said yes to this, but they don't know if they want to buy any fudge. I'm using fudge because that's my metaphor. But so we sample it, right? And look, try this fudge. If do you enjoy it? Is it tasty? Is it delicious? Do you want more? So that's what the work is when we don't get paid for it, but we're of as deep service as we can be in that confined space. It opens things up in incredible ways. And over the years, actually, of all the hundreds of people I've coached, more often it's been people who would not have invested in coaching who ended up becoming my clients. People who didn't want coaching, people who, even those they're like burned out with coaching, in fact, but they're the ones who committed the deepest sometimes to the work because of the free fudge aspect, being of deep service, and then just letting them know how they can continue if they want to. It's very simple, works really well. Yes, Ben calls it complimentary cocktails. It's his version of that, having been a cocktail barman for a while and doing these cocktail masterclasses and things. So he stole it, but then upgraded it for himself, which is wonderful. And I invite anyone watching this to do the same. You're welcome to have all of this and make it your own. And Arti says, love the new level of interactivity. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, me too. Like last week, right, I didn't have anyone interacting live at all. I had people popping in and out, as always happens, but no one live interacting. It just wasn't that enjoyable for me. It's like if I could do a pre-recorded video, right, which is the same thing, and I'd probably enjoy that more because I know it's going to be a pre-recorded video. I do these lives because of the interaction potential, right? Like one of the things I realized is that I'm really missing the in-person group work. I deliberately chose to stop doing it for a while because I wanted to build more online and be at home more. So that was a deliberate choice long before lockdown happened and the COVID came into the world. But of course I had no idea that it was going to be, what it has become. And so I really miss like having a room full of people and being able to just like coach the room. I really miss that. And as someone who used to be terrified of public speaking, it was 7 years ago, in fact, in October. We're in October? No, we're in November, aren't we? Yeah, 7 years ago in October, it was the first time I'd ever stood up in front of a room of, it was 60, and speak for a single minute. And I felt so ill and I almost passed out. And then I ran and sat down, and the guy that was running the event just laughs at me. Now, Matt, he just laughs at me, but how bad I was then. But since then, having done hundreds of these things, I made a point to I just learned to love it, actually, and really love it. Because when there's a room full of people looking at you and you can ask them questions and you can see the engagement, and they can talk to me, right? It's much easier than a comment. You have to wait for them to type and all that kind of thing, right? And who knows who's going to jump in and out. I miss that. So that's something that I'm going to need to bring in. I mean, whatever happens with COVID, actually, I think next year I'm going to, once the spring kicks in, I'm going to have some in-person, socially distanced, like coaching group meetups, because I miss it, and I'm sure some of you do too. And so I think we need some in-person work. We can socially distance, right, and keep it safe for everyone if COVID's doing its thing, which I assume it will be. But at least then we can get some, some connection and some deep work going on. And of course, you can coach from a distance. We can do it through Zoom. We can do it through like a few meter gap. It can be done. It will just enable us to look into different areas. So that's something that I want to bring in, that kind of interactivity as well. I've got a Sanjay says, Ben says that sounds awesome. It will be, man. It really will be. Sanjay, what do you enjoy more, David? Group coaching or just one-on-one where you go super deep with one person? It's interesting actually, because I know that I prefer one-on-one coaching in a group. That's what I like. So I blend those two things together. So I love running groups because there's so many things that happen there. Like when I'm coaching you, for instance, the everyone else in the group is being coached too, but it's just not directive. So they're able to receive it in a different way. They're able to take lessons from it in a different way. Also, the bonds that happen in these groups, they get like friends for life that can happen. At least so far they've been life, right? I don't know if it will last for decades, but there's a potential for that because the bonds become so deep. We share so deeply. I share, they share, and we connect together in that way. Plus, for me, especially the work I do, like training coaches in pure coaching, I get to see them working with each other. And then I have to pay attention to the person doing the coaching. I have to pay attention to the person being the client, and it requires more of me as well. And depending on what's going on, when I'm paying attention to one person, I'm also need to have some awareness of everyone else too. And the challenge of that I really love. And it helps me to navigate the group and to coach in different ways. So for me, the group coaching is phenomenal for so many ways. In some ways, actually, I think group coaching is more valuable and should be more expensive than one-on-one work because of the nature of what it gives people. It's like when in a group, someone has to share and speak openly, right? We share deeply. Well, when it's one-on-one, that's a certain level of fear being activated, right? But we're creating this safe space. In a group, yes, I have the safe space with the group, but there's other pairs of eyes on them, right? Multiple pairs of eyes, which is going to be more challenging. So the level of growth is going to be far more rapid when they do that. It's why like growing publicly, it has you grow rapidly and deeply in a way that wouldn't be possible one-on-one. In fact, for some clients, it would be a bad idea to do one-on-one work because of the nature of that's where they feel safe. And yes, we want people to feel safe, but we want them to feel safe in this dangerous world, right? And so depending on the individual, it can be a terrible idea to do one-on-one coaching because they're just going to it's going to be harder for them, slower for them to grow. Whereas put them in a group suddenly, create this extreme safety in a group where we can support each other, where there's no judgment or anything like that, and they just feel supported. Well, suddenly everything they do is amplified. So yeah, I suppose as you can tell by the way I've answered that, right? Even if I hadn't said it overtly, I fucking love group coaching so much. It's why I'm looking forward to having my new group in the new year, actually, to learn pure coaching, because it's just going to be phenomenal. Ben says, I can't wait to really get group coaching going for myself. Yeah. You got your group starting soon, right? That's going to be very cool. And then Arti, I love being in your groups and love running coaching groups too. Yeah, exactly. It's just something about it, And Arti has done something very cool, way better than I've ever done. She's actually got a group right now that she's coaching in a Facebook group with her 5-day Fearless Life Challenge, right? And we're on day 2, right? Are we on day 2? Day 2. Yes. We're on day 2, right, of your 5-day Fearless Life Challenge. You've got over 50 people in that group. So she's essentially in some way coaching this big group, which is awesome. Now, of course, the depth of coaching is different when you're on a Zoom or anything like that, or you've got a smaller group. The depth of coaching per individual is different. But my God, can you do great work with large groups when you know how to hold this safe space, which Arti does. So I know those people are taken care of. And who knows? I mean, I hope they continue working with you in all the different ways you've got, because there's just so much. You do great work, Arti, and your clients are the evidence of the great work that you've done so far. So Arti runs great groups, and I know Ben's attended some of your groups too, right? So you get an experience of just how good she is at them. So yeah, Arti, I think you should be running a lot more groups in the coming months and years ahead. I mean, I can see it being very big for you. And that makes sense to you, Sanjay. Great. Yeah. Ben says a one-person group. It begins today. For fortnightly workshops. I hope to have many more people within. Hey, man. The first group, he created something new, which was group coaching. Only had one person say yes to it, but he had a start date and he started. That's cool, man. I mean, I was lucky with my first group. Actually, it was 3 is what I had in my first group. But I had done meetup groups before that when no one showed. I'd show up to the event. I even used to pay for a room in Liverpool Street, and no one showed multiple times. That was just horrible. To put the effort in to get people there, no one showed up. That was tough. However, it's actually hard to have that happen now. If we're just paying attention, we're asking people directly. Most of the time, if we're paying attention and we're connecting with people, you always make sure you get at least one in your group, right? A one-person group. So Ben, your challenge is to get a 2-person group going next time, then, right? That'd be your upgrade. And you're welcome, Arti. Okay, so I think that's been an epic today. So thank you. I've loved the interaction. I've loved the different places we ended up going. That's why your interaction is so important. It's always going to be better because you're here. So thank you for contributing, all of you. And anyone who didn't contribute this time, please do so in future. If you're watching on the replay, try and put it in your calendar. Look, it's 1:30 p.m. UK time, whichever it is for you at the moment. I think it's actually GMT at the moment. It's GMT now, isn't it? Well, it's +1 the rest of the year. So GMT, 1:30, put it in your calendar, show up. Let's have you become a better coach by participating and helping others to become a better coach too. So for those of you who've watched this long, I should have done this earlier. I'm rubbish at this, right? I have some fucking amazing things that you should be connecting with me over, right? Which is pure coaching. I have a free training, which is 40 minutes long, which is awesome, which is coaches are using to make their coaching better already. It runs you through what the 7 elements are, how to utilize them effectively, and how to train them actually in as well. So if you want to be a better coach and you want to be able to hold this extremely safe space for your clients, message me and ask me for my pure coach training. And for those of you who want an adventure into coaching, who really want to become an extraordinary and rare coach, someone who your life is a representation of your work as well. If that interests you, next year in the not in January, it will start in Feb. I've got the pure coach training and certification where you get to go deep into pure coaching. And of course, to make pure coaching work, you have to become a bigger human being yourself. So it's a personal development adventure. It is a coaching adventure. You're going to be tested. You're going to be challenged. You're going to be in a group. It's going to be fucking awesome. If that interests you, you want to find out more, send me a message and let's talk. Okay, I really should do this stuff early because most people don't watch to the end, right? Because they're busy. Or if they watch on the replay, no one gets there. So note to self, remember to say it at the beginning and say it in the middle. I mean, it's basic really, but I get so caught up, I forget to do these basic things. Thank you very much, Arti. Yes. Arti says, I highly recommend the pure coaching method. Yes. And you are... obviously I get to see you using it in our training sessions, right? And just seeing the improvement and how the depth of, ability that is, that I've seen change within you in the past couple of years, just insane. And of course, it's one of those factors that will help you to be able to hold the space for a large numbers of people where they feel deeply safe and held. It's just phenomenal, actually, what it is. So thank you, Arti. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Ben, for being here, for interacting, for making this awesome. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. And I look forward to seeing you and participating with you